I am Slick Nick. I am the living legend, and I like where these conversations are going. I made a video quite recently that was called "The Less I Care, the More I Matter." Nick Shell doesn't give a shift, and we're talking about driving a manual transmission 6-speed Jeep Wrangler, because you ultimately have to determine at what point you need to shift gears and other times you don't. It requires a decision-making process. It involves time and energy. And in the same way, as humans, we get to decide when we want to spend emotional energy to care about what other people say about us. We get to decide if we're going to be disrespected. We get to decide if we deserve more than we're being given. And I like this comment that I received. And by the way, Carrie Holzman, I like you. You belong here. The direction of this channel is here. We're looking at masculine maturity is what we're looking at. And here's simply what he said, and I basically just want to steal this from him. Here's what he said, quote, "I agree. Those who look hungry don't get fed." Man, that is brilliant. Those who look hungry don't get fed. Going back to the concept of, if you constantly, especially as a man, if you constantly are seeking confirmation that you're good at whatever it is, or that you matter, or that you're important in any kind of way, you depend on other people for that confirmation, that's the problem itself. I mention it often because it matters. You know, here's what I almost feel. Assuming that you've got access to Netflix, just go ahead and watch all 9 seasons again of The Office, which I have now done twice all the way through. And you'll be amazed. You look at the characters of Michael Scott and Andy Bernard, who are very similar the way those characters are. Both of them are men who don't really seem to grow up. You got Michael Scott, who ultimately didn't even get married until he was after the age of 40. And even when the series ends, you have Andy Bernard, who never got married, and he was age 38, which age I am right now. But something that held them back from moving on with their life is they both needed the people around them to confirm that they mattered. And that is not masculine. It's very boyish. And it's not a coincidence that it took, well, the whole show, the first 7 seasons, for Michael Scott to grow up enough to finally get married and have a family. And then when the show ended with Andy Bernard, it kind of didn't end that great for him, because his life still really wasn't going anywhere at age 38, because he was so desperate to have other people tell him that he mattered. And so going back to this whole thing about those who look hungry are not the ones who get fed. It always goes back to what I say, fake it till you make it. But that's the paradox. Younger men are not willing to fake it till they make it. They base their identity on all these superficial things that matter in high school. And as they enter adulthood, they hold themselves back because they look hungry. They look needy. And that's how the characters of, especially Andy Bernard, but Michael Scott too, they were needy. And that's the thing. It's a masculine trait to not be needy, but instead to be the one that people actually need. It's all about being calm and assertive. And even if you don't have all the answers, being calm and assertive has a lot to do with people assuming that you're kind of in charge and leading the way. I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but let me share this with you again. By the way, you know I'm an actor, right? You know that's all this channel is. Okay, well, now that we established that, and I reminded you of that, because I know it's easy to buy into the illusion that I'm this character that I've created for this channel. No, I'm a guy that works in HR. I work in recruiting. And what that means is my job is to help fill job openings across America constantly. That's what I'm doing. And my process is this. When I have somebody call in about a job they saw online, I don't say, "Hey, would you be interested in this job? Let me tell you more about it. Okay, here's all the things about it. No, what? How do you feel about that? What do you think about that?" Of course not. What do? I'm like, "Hey, thanks for calling. So here's what you need to know about the job. Okay, so I can go ahead and get you set up with an interview for tomorrow. Be here at this time and just make sure you sign in on the portal right here and you'll be all set. Does that sound good? Okay, good. I don't ask them, I tell them the next steps to do. And the only time I ask them questions is when I'm asking them questions to make sure that they qualify for the job, which still makes them feel included. That's leadership. That's what that looks like. It's a matter of, and we've talked about it before. I made the video about a month ago when my dad wanted the buzz cut, and I had never used those clippers with a guard before. I'd only used it without it about a year ago when I was shaving off my hair, and I described what I was doing as I was doing it, but it wasn't until after I finished the video that I even oh, okay, good, I didn't mess it up. But everybody that watched the video assumed I knew what I was talking about because I was talking about it, because I was narrating the thing. And that's funny. A lot of times, if you simply explain what you're doing, people assume that you know what you're doing, which again goes back to, I am Mr. Fake It Till You Make It. I don't look hungry, therefore I get fed. I'm not looking for food all the time, and somehow I have the food. Meanwhile, other people are so desperate for it that people don't want to give them the food. And of course, symbolically speaking, the food is ultimately the feeling that you matter. Knowing in your heart that you know who you are and that you do matter without anybody ever having to tell you, hey, you matter. Hey, I like you. Hey, you're important. And of course, I already made the video talking about how it feels like most younger men assume that their likability is largely based on their looks. And for those who believe it, they get trapped in that box. The rest of us realize, wow, we get off easy as guys because the pressure to look good is really not that big of a deal to us. It is for girls, but it only shows how sexist this whole thing is. That men are wired to perceive physical beauty first, and women, and they're not wired that same way to us. They're constantly looking for someone to feed them, the supplier, the person who walks around like they know what they're doing, like they run the place, even if they don't, like this guy. But people keep going along with what I'm saying, and it goes back to an episode of riding in comedians in cars getting coffee. Love that show. And Howard Stern, that episode, he talks about how that's how he started his talk radio career. Was he would just talk about topics as if he really cared about them. People would call in. It made his show popular, and he's made a career lasting for several decades over this. Did he actually really care about the stuff he was talking about? No. And as we know, before the reboot, I made 2,600 videos about a topic I didn't care about. But ultimately, people follow a leader, even sometimes they don't even realize that they're following a leader. And going back to this whole concept of alpha male and beta male, it's all arbitrary. But ultimately, forget about those terms. Who are the confident men? Who are the leaders? Who are the people are naturally following? Who are the people that people are listening to, that they'll spend 9 minutes to watch a video about a guy talking about some short little comment that he got from some random person who found his channel today, which, by the way, I'm glad you're here, by the way. Definitely. So there you go. Those who look hungry are the ones who don't get fed. It's those of us who seem like we know what we're doing that seem to turn out okay. Hashtag fake it till you make it. You got comments? They belong right here.